Thank you so much for being here tonight. I also know Eric for years from the many fights that he organizes and I show up for. He's a writer, organizer, and educator based in New York. He has over 30 years of accomplishments building progressive power, leading environmental and social justice campaigns, and winning policy and political victories. He's currently a senior organizer for Food and Water Watch, and he has where he has worked for 13 years. Doing an amazing job. Thank you, Eric. Tila Troge, I don't know her, and I didn't get the, Tila, I don't see you immediately. I'm hoping you're waving. Oh, there you are. What I can say about Tila is my colleagues who know her have recommended her so highly as being a wonderful speaker and another organizer who truly understands the deep problems with climate change. She's a member of the Shinnecock Indian Nation and a member of the, I'm going to try this, Hassanamisko tribe, Hassanamisko Nipmuc tribe. You'll give it to us. And Tila has been very involved in organizing the Shinnecock Kelp Farm, which I hope she gets to tell us about. So I have many questions for all of you wonderful panelists. And I would like to give you all opportunities. We've gotten some questions from our committee and from the audience that's attending tonight. So I'd like to start with some of the tough ones, if that's okay with you, and let me know, raise your hand if you'd like. Why don't the four of you unmute and we will make sure that when you raise your hand, I'll call on you. One of the things we know is that many people do not really comprehend the immensity of what is confronting us. And we don't know how to reach these people. And can you offer any advice, incentive, how we can try to reach those who don't know anything about it? Alternatively, people who do know and understand climate change, but are so overwhelmed just surviving that they're not able to take definitive steps. Does anybody want to try to tackle that? Come on, go ahead, Eric. Thank you.
Give it a shot. So again, my name is Eric Weltman. I'm a Brooklyn-based organizer with Food and Water Watch. I want to acknowledge, first of all, Carrie and Ting for organizing this event tonight. I also want to acknowledge with some phenomenal activists, many of whom I've worked with for years, and I'm really, Betta is one of my favorites. A lot of great activists here. So the godfather of organizing, so to speak, Saul Alinsky said, you've got to start where people are at. Everybody cares about something, whether it's their kids, their dog, they like to fish, they like to eat, they like to drink clean water. Everybody cares about something. And so as organizers, what we need to do is engage people on what they already care about and what they already know and what they already believe in. So we're not, sitting on street corners petitioning and lecturing every passerby for half an hour about, the science of climate change. We're engaging with them on what they already care about and giving them tools and resources and opportunities to get involved. So that's the second part of the equation is you engage people with what they already know or what they already think, what they already care about, and you give them an opportunity to get involved, whether it's signing a petition, whether it's making a call, whether it's attending a meeting. So that's the important thing is to give, they might be incredibly busy, they might have 2 or 3 jobs, but you want to engage them in whatever, and, maybe they can give $5, maybe they can give $500, but whatever they give, you're grateful for.
Thank you so much, Eric. Betta, do you have anything or to add?
Thank you. And also I want to say thank you so much for hosting this and for all of you for being here. And I have tremendous respect for this network, and I know you all are probably seasoned activists and, an important part of your communities and this movement. So thank you for everything that everybody's doing to move things forward. Your question, Carrie, I think was really important and something I struggle with a lot, which is, how do we have these conversations with people that are not already part of our movement and not sound preachy and not overwhelm. And at New Yorkers for Clean Power, we really try to present the material in an accessible way. We have different workshops for different audiences. And we really want to work with allies like all of you to get the word out to more people. So I will do a plug, if you have a community group or a school or, a sewing circle, whatever, any kind of collective group of friends that you would be interested in having us, one of us, New Yorkers for Clean Power, or one of our allies who can speak about the transition to clean energy, and specifically the Climate Act in New York State that passed in 2019. And we now have a climate plan. And you all probably know about that, but I find 99.9% of people, even folks who read the New York Times every day and are really, well educated, don't know this, that we're mandated by law to decarbonize our entire economy here in New York State by 2050. So we want to reach more people. We need people to reach more people. So I put a link in the chat to a form. If you do have a group or an idea for a group or a school or anything that you would want a presentation at, please fill it out or just, let me know. And I have this fantasy that if enough of us team up and really, also engage our school systems, we can reach the millions of New Yorkers that need to know about this and hopefully empower them so they don't feel, hopeless, which I think is one of the biggest problems that, I think most people are aware of the climate crisis right now, but most people don't realize that we have the technologies, we have the solutions. It's just a matter of, political will and making these technologies more accessible and affordable to more people. So, yeah. And then the second question was, what was your second question, Carrie? Sorry.
Well, just basically, how do we encourage people that are overwhelmed in their own lives?
Right. And I struggle with that too, because I'm overwhelmed, right?
Right.
I have a 3-year-old and we all have stuff. Maybe you're caring for an elderly parent, or maybe you have a debilitating, illness or something that you're suffering with, right? I mean, people have a lot of stress and stuff in their lives, and taking on something as big as climate, I think, is really overwhelming for people. I loved what Eric said about, really meeting people where they are and giving them lots of different ways to take action. And I think that's great. And, even if it is something as simple as signing a petition or just, joining a group, even if it's just getting a newsletter, not necessarily going to a lot of meetings, maybe somebody's not ready for that, and that's okay. But there's a lot of different ways I think that people can take action, whether they're an introvert or they love going door to door, or they have, 5 hours a week, or they have 5 minutes a week. We can all kind of do something and not guilt tripping people and turning them off to the movement, but really encouraging them that all of these little steps, count. So that's just thoughts.
Well, one of the things we had discussed was, getting people to make behavioral changes. And the question came up, is it telling them to stop buying plastic jugs of laundry soap, or do we have to make sure there's legislation? And I know, the policies, it's about policies, and how do we get to the political elected officials who are being pummeled by the moneyed interests that are controlling their way of voting. And Andrew, do you think you could address some of this? You've been involved in writing legislation and you might even tell us something about the Build Public Renewables and All Electric Building Act and how that came about and what you had to go through to get that passed. I think it passed, yeah.
Yeah, so both passed, and I think I missed the first part of your question. So if I don't get to it, please ask again. But so Sunrise, we came on sort of late to that process. We joined Public Power, New York, the coalition, which of course Food and Water Watch is also a part of. And we, it was a lot of hard work trying to convince key legislators to support the bill. Did a lot of lobby visits with them. We also, the coalition worked with a great comms company that did a lot of work for us too, that really helped move the needle at the end to really push us over the line. For All Electric Buildings Act, we were less a part of, but where we could, we still had our members call in, make phone calls. We did joined some lobby visits with folks as well. But really the key has been just keeping the pressure on legislators and never losing hope. If it doesn't go through one session, keep trying in the off season, just never let off the gas. What was the first part of your question?
Well, it was how do we get to these policymakers who are being controlled by their donors?
Yeah, I mean, so what we do, or at least when I am sending members to meetings or we're setting up our own with legislators, we really try and do some research, background research on the elected first and try and relate key parts of their communities to the legislation we're talking to them with, and try and get them to understand how it benefits their constituents with specific examples that are pertain to their district and not talking in broad strokes. Although that is hard with some folks because, as you said, money still talks, unfortunately. Actually, a great bill that Assemblymember Slages introduced a couple weeks ago that would ban utilities from using ratepayer money for lobbying and political donations and other similar things, which is a good start. We just need to do it for the rest of the industry too, but baby steps. But yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yeah, well, it's tough. I know it's tough. We're all working, all of us that are involved in this environmental arena. We're just trying to get to our governor to get her to sign one piece of legislation to not dump the radioactive water from Indian Point into the river. And it's like, this should be a no-brainer, but we cannot seem to get through to make sure this legislation gets signed. And a bunch of us are working with Food and Water Watch to try to get the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, right? With that name, you'd think they know what they're doing. We want them to not allow an air permit for, which is interesting because it relates to this legislation about all electric buildings. They want to expand the gas that goes through the compressor stations in Athens, where I live, and in Dover, in Dutchess County, to get more gas to the city, which is it's after the fact. So let's try to understand why they continue. I mean, that piece in the film with the fossil fuel executive speaking was just mind blowing. That they've convinced themselves that they're doing the right thing. Tila, you've done something that's so absolutely amazing and interesting with the kelp farm. Can you tell us about that and share? I mean, that kind of local program seems to be an incredible way for local communities to get involved.
Yeah, so I'm Tila Troge. I am an attorney and a member of the Shinnecock Nation. I'm also the director of the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers. We are the original inhabitants of this place. We've called Long Island home for 13,000 years at least, and we have been absolutely devastated by the climate crisis. We've had our land stolen to the point where we have our whole entire population on a peninsula in Southampton, which is home of some of the most influential people in the world. And let's not make any mistake about this. Fossil fuels have devastated our entire planet. Capitalism has killed countless people. It's only getting worse, but there are solutions. And so, it's easy to become overwhelmed with anxiety and hopelessness, but there's also, strength and empowerment in working together with your communities to try to mitigate and reverse some of the devastation. For us, it's been a devastation to our food system. We rely on the water, and with the fossil fuel industry, we've seen our water temperatures rise to the point where unfortunately the species of fish that we've survived on for so long have now a mortality rate of over 99.999%. Our waters have been declared federal fisheries disaster zone by the Biden-Harris administration. And so we've introduced these kelp farms to combat that. They combat ocean acidification, which is caused by excess carbon and the fossil fuels. And it also combats nitrogen. So here, our water, it's untreated, even though, again, our neighbors are billionaires, the richest people in the world. They don't have septic systems, they don't have sewer systems, they don't have wastewater treatment centers. And so all of their waste has killed everything in our water, which is our source of food. And so our kelp farms, they not only sequester an incredible amount of carbon, they also extract all these excess nitrates from the water. In addition, they create habitat and reintroduce oxygen into the water, which causes all kinds of species to kind of flock back. And the biodiversity is incredible, from shorebirds to seahorses to crabs and sharks. They flock around this little ecosystem that we recreate by replenishing and restoring in a regenerative way. And so none of us are scientists. I'm an attorney. I work with 6 other Indigenous women. And so we have found amazing success when we combine traditional ecological knowledge together with modern science. We believe that that's where the answers to the climate crisis lie. And so we like to combat capitalism on its face. We pay our farmers a living wage for our region. We don't have hierarchies. Our director is paid the same as our technician, and the work that we do is for the benefit of the earth and the globe. Instead of just trying to hoard and accumulate money, we're trying to replenish, restore, rebalance, and model this type of work. I think that the future is in this type of blue-green economy. And I think that, again, having models of a different way is incredibly powerful and empowering. And we love to educate children and reconnect them with basic elements. We need water to live. Water is life. We need clean air, and we need to take care of our Mother Earth. And so these are things that we work towards every single day, to build this resiliency and this hope, towards, you know, being able to provide a better future, for the next generations.
I hear you say that you are modeling something, so this is a program that can be replicated.
Yes, we're hoping that it could be replicated at a wide scale. I think kelp is a huge solution just because of its amazing ability to sequester excess carbon. We turn our kelp into a soil amendment, and so all of that excess carbon and nitrates, they're stored in the soil. And we believe that by regenerative agriculture and aquaculture, that we can capture enough of the excess carbon to kind of mitigate as we divest from fossil fuels. Obviously, like kelp farming alone is not going to do anything. It has to be coupled with divesting ourselves, but at the same time, we acknowledge that, you know, switching over to renewables while we divest is going to be painful. This was the hottest July in all of recorded history, and it's only going to get worse. And we have to take action. We can't be like crippled by the paralyzing anxiety that this very easily can cause. And so we just, you know, we work and take action every single day to try to mitigate and to adapt to this new reality. But I think that's a large part of it, that it's harder and harder to deny, I think, the realities that we're facing. And so by inviting as many people as we can in to do this at a wide scale, I think that's where our success lies. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom that Indigenous communities have in stewarding these places. And I think that that right now we're so disconnected from that, but I think returning back to Indigenous wisdom can really help save us and the climate and the planet, and help us create the world that our kids need us to create, so that they can enjoy the same things that we've enjoyed.
Tila, how can people get involved with kelp farming or I mean, if it can be replicated, is it saltwater, freshwater, anywhere? How do we get involved?
So we have an Instagram, Shinnecock Kelp Farmers, also an email address, shinnecockkelpfarmers@gmail.com. One of the things that we do is we have a kelp hatchery, and so we grow kelp seeds. The region of this species that we grow do best from Cape Cod all the way down to Long Island. So we're one of the main suppliers for sugar kelp for this entire region. We've had our kelp from Montauk Point to Jamaica Bay. And so we're more than happy to help anyone who has any interest in aquaculture. We're more than happy to provide seedlings. It's very, very, very easy to do. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease, but we're more than happy to walk anybody who's interested through the process, to invite them out to our hatchery. We're located in Hampton Bays on the east end of Long Island. And we're currently developing curriculum to share our messages in schools as well. But definitely follow us on Instagram and email us if you'd like to volunteer or visit our farm.
Thank you. That's fabulous. Can you please put the Instagram connection and your email into the chat?
Yes.
And I find this can it be done in a lake? I live on a lake.
It's not great in a lake, but there are other things that we can talk about. It does, the currents really help the kelp.
Oh, got it. I'll get in touch with you. Thank you. So, you know, I've spent years of my life, 40, 50 years of my life, trying to educate, trying to I've protested, I've rallied, I've lobbied, I've been arrested, I've been, I was thrown out of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission meeting in DC. And so all of these efforts that we've made, are these techniques that we've been using working? If not, are there other techniques? I pose this to any of you who, other than kelp farming, because that's obviously another kind of technique. Yeah, Eric, please. Unmute, please.
So earlier in the chat, I noted, reflecting back on your previous question about how to engage people, a crucial motivator, I think for just about anyone, is that their time is well spent. And here in New York, we have a tremendous track record of taking on the fossil fuel industry and winning over and over and over and over again. We banned fracking. We banned frack gas in new buildings in New York City. We banned frack gas in new buildings in New York State. We've stopped innumerable frack gas pipelines and power plants. So I would readily, happily, eagerly say to anybody contemplating getting involved in our movement that we have a strong track record of winning over and over again. And so to your question about, our tactics, they're varied. They're all with an eye towards, influencing, key decision makers, whether it's, Governor Hochul or, Mayor Adams. We know how to win here in New York, and we've done it over and over again. And so I think that's something we can take pride in. And I'm going to put in the chat an article that I wrote for in these times about some of the strategies and tactics that we use in the successful fight to ban fracking in New York. And they include things like, bird dogging, which actually, we did to Governor Hochul this morning at City Hall to try to get her to sign that radioactive waste bill. There's a lot of tremendous tactics, all of them, though, with an eye towards influencing key decision makers. I think that that's something that, Food and Water Watch and our allies, that's part of our trademark is in undertaking tactics that successfully, motivate and involve people, but also really exert a lot of pressure on decision makers.
Fantastic. I'd like to know if Betta, perhaps you can address, other than the group efforts that many of us get involved in, can you recommend, what can one person do, one family, one household?
Sure. And I'm excited that Eric shared that article because I worked on that campaign to ban fracking with him and perhaps you, but never read that article. So I'm looking forward to reading it. And definitely, love everything you said, Gary, about, all of the tactics you've tried, and I'm all about letting 1,000 flowers bloom. And, there's so many kind of different strategies we have to employ in this movement. And certainly one of them, I think is our own personal choices, and, our own consumer choices. And there are small things that can make a big difference. One area that I'm not an expert in, I don't really work on, but I know it's extremely important for climate, and that's waste. Hopefully many of you compost, because what it's just insane to be like, schlepping all of our food waste and organics to landfills. And then, that contributes to methane and it takes greenhouse gas emissions to, do the trucking. There's so many reasons why composting just makes a lot of sense. And in general, I think the more that we can reduce our stuff that we don't need, minimize our plastic use. I've taken to carrying around a bamboo fork, for years now. And I think, people can sort of deride these personal choices, but getting off the plastic habit, breaking that addiction, is a biggie, and it is going to take all of us, in addition to legislation and, all of that, individual choices do matter. And we are just in the process here in New York State of launching these regional clean energy hubs in every part of the state. And they're funded by NYSERDA, but the idea behind them is to have community-based organizations, nonprofits, to help people and really handhold them through, especially low to moderate income households, how they can reduce energy use, sign up for bill assistance programs, ideally, do energy efficiency measures, weatherization, air sealing, and hopefully decarbonize completely by electrifying. So switching from a fossil fuel based system. I know, Carrie, I think you have geothermal to heat pumps. I have air source heat pumps, which is great. And obviously not everybody can, easily make that switch, but it's something you can start planning for. You can help your, building manager or owner if you're a renter, and there are other kind of DIY things that we can all do. Another, aspect of New Yorkers for Clean Power that I will put a link in the chat, or I guess you'll send one around, but we have this pro bono assistance for people that need help figuring out what to do next, because it can be kind of overwhelming if you're thinking, oh, maybe I should, sign up for community solar, or maybe put solar on my roof, or, I think maybe the next car I get could be electric, what's the story with getting used EVs, or, there's all these kind of things to wrestle with, induction stoves. And so we have these free energy advisors, and you can sign up for clean energy coaching. And sorry, the energy advisors are actually associated with the Clean Energy Hubs. That's this NYSERDA funded program that's rolling out across the state. I'm working on the one with Association for Energy Affordability in the Bronx and Brooklyn, and NYCP is also working on the Mid-Hudson one. We have amazing groups working all over the state to create these networks to really help people make those choices in their own homes and businesses and community centers. And but in the meantime, if you want to sign up for clean energy coaching, we have that service, and I'm also, happy to answer any questions people might have in the chat that I could help with. We, have done some things here, but I think, every day the less sort of, waste that we can use and plastic and fossil fuels, the better. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the things that we recommend today are not affordable by everyone. And I'd like to see that change, but we keep trying, yes. Andrew, you put a link in the chat. Do you want to just speak to that briefly? And we're gonna have to wrap up. I mean, I could talk on this subject all night.
Yeah. What I just put is we at a few of us at Sunrise made a bill tracker. Our digital team is actually working on making it not just a Google sheet and making it look a little better, but we try and keep all of the major legislation, not just climate, but in general in the state legislature on this. It updates with new co-sponsors automatically, try and add new bills, keep track of where things are in the legislature at least every couple weeks. I think it's probably a little outdated right now, but yeah, we just like sharing it with people because we think it's a good resource to help for folks to see who's not on things at a glance. And yeah, pretty much that's all there is to it.
I'm pretty sure, by the way, we'll be sending out in a follow-up email to everyone that's attended tonight, all of these links that we've acquired. Tila, do you have anything that you would like to, by the way, we were looking for questions in the chat, and I don't know if there are any, if there's really time left. We can, Ting, can we stay on beyond 9 o'clock?
Sure, if anybody wants to, happy to.
Okay. So Tila, do you have anything you'd like to offer to recommend to people going forward?
Yeah, I just really like to put things into perspective. Every time a billionaire flies their private jet, their carbon footprint is more than you and I's car would make in an entire year. And so
Thank
I
you for
think
that.
there's very, very, very strong organizing happening in the climate disruption field. I know we just had a week-long series of direct actions here in the Hamptons. We shut down the East Hampton Airport. We're not afraid to go to billionaires' homes, their vacation homes. We're not afraid to go visit them on the golf course or when they're eating dinner. And I think that's the key, because we're fighting for the future. This is a fight for future generations, for current youth to take on. And I think that all measures are on the table. Yes, we can make better personal choices, but ultimately, unless we name and call out exactly who's at fault here, and those people are those who are profiting from the fossil fuel industry while the rest of us live in devastation. I think that we have to humanize it, and there's ways to do that. And I think it's extraordinarily effective. It's extraordinarily radical. And I think we need to, in this case, follow the young people's lead.
Thank you, Tila. I really appreciate that perspective. I'd like to, before everybody starts to leave, I want to make sure to give Eric time as one of the major organizers for the September 17th Climate March to just give us something on that. If you'll just unmute, Eric.
You're still muted, Eric.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll be brief. I've put dozens of links in the chat. In mid-September, the UN Secretary General is convening what he's calling a Climate Ambition Summit. And he's intending to put the nations of the world on the spot to commit to moving off fossil fuels. The United States has not done so, so it's not clear whether or not our very country will receive an invitation to this summit. I do expect that he'll probably bow to political reality and invite the U.S., but nonetheless, on September 17th, which is the eve of this summit, thousands of people from across the country are going to be marching in Manhattan to put pressure on the Biden administration to take bold action against climate change. As a Jew myself, I will readily acknowledge that that day is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Unfortunately, we felt obliged to hold the march that day because it is right before this Climate Ambition Summit. We're hoping that you'll join us, that you'll get involved, that you'll have your organization or your group endorse the march, that you'll sign up to help leaflet if you live in the city, or phone bank or text bank. There's a lot of work to get done. We're holding bi-weekly calls for volunteers, Thursdays at 7. For organizational endorsers, there's bi-weekly calls Mondays at 3. There's lots of ways to get plugged in. You can form your own hub and commit to helping recruit 10 people to join the march. There's a lot of ways to get involved. This is a very important event, so we hope to see you on the east side of Manhattan. It is accessible by train. We're expecting a lot of folks from Long Island and the Hudson Valley and Westchester to take the train to Grand Central. So hope to see you there. And I'll put my email in the chat if you want to follow up with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
And Carrie, can I just give one last plug? Sorry, I would feel very guilty if I didn't mention this to you all. And that is the importance of supporting New York Heat, the New York Home Energy Affordable Transition Act. I put a couple of links in the chat where you can find out more details about that bill, but it basically will be a knife to the heart of the gas industry. It's going to help us transition entire neighborhoods off of fossil fuels. So, we don't have to do this house by house approach. and we don't have to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars that the gas industry wants us to spend on replacing old gas pipes, putting in brand new ones that are going to last 80 years at a time when we need to be decommissioning our gas system, not replacing it and expanding it and subsidizing it, which is what we're currently doing. So it's a really important piece of legislation. I know it's a top priority for Food and Water Watch. I think hopefully the Sunrise Movement, we've had Sunrise Movement folks come out to some of our, rallies and press events, and it should be included in the governor's budget this year. It passed in the Senate last session, but that's a big push that we're going to be making. And it's really how we're going to decarbonize our building sector, do it equitably. And we banned fracking, but we're still using it to heat our buildings, and we got to stop. And this bill is going to help us start making that transition in a really smart, equitable way.
Thank you. Yes. So does any of our panelists need to add any more before we sign off? And by the way, Eric, I'm working with other Jewish people. We're going to try to have a contingent marching behind a banner that says second day of Rosh Hashanah, Jews for fighting climate change. So let's see how that goes. I think I'd like to just check in with Joe Sackman and see if he has anything he wanted to add. And I think he's going to close this program out. So thank you all for being so attentive, and thank you to our wonderful panelists. I'm so glad I know you and that I can continue to work with you going forward. There's Joe. Hi, Joe. Unmute.
There we go. Okay. All right. Thanks, Carrie, and thanks to all the panelists for showing up tonight and I guess talking about the most important issue of our time. It's I paused because it's a reality I think a lot of people are waking up to. And earlier this evening I was on another panel, and they brought up the Inflation Reduction Act, and a lot of people are touting how there's so much being done about climate in that act. And I said, yeah, this is probably the most the government has done, but so much more needs to happen. There just isn't enough that's being done in that piece of legislation. And so we have individuals that are constantly taking action, and we really appreciate everybody showing up and sharing what they've been doing. This may not be a happy-go-lucky movie, and that's okay, because this is a serious subject, and it's something we can work towards mitigating and adapting towards, and just basically making sure we have a future. This is something that we can do and we need to do. So let's, if you can make it to the march, come to the march. If you can sign up, with Betta's forum there, do so. If you know people who want to get involved with Sunrise, do that. Get involved with NIPAN. We're always doing something. NIPAN is always doing something, and that's why we're here tonight, because again, we are doing something. We're bringing this to our members and beyond, and that's my lead into, please support what we do, because it's important that we stay active, that we stay political, and we can't do that just on our volunteer time alone. We can't do these movie sessions and panels without your support. I know Ting has put a link in the chat, so if you can make a donation, even if it's $5, please do so. It helps us cover the cost of the movie and all the other things that we're going to do. We're going to buy some banners for the march. Come to come March with NIPAN. And let's get this going, you know, let's keep moving forward. And, you know, I know Tila, she's great. I'm always excited to hear about the kelp farm. You know, Long Island's going to become the kelp empire. And, you know, I'm going to leave it at that. Again, thanks everybody, and appreciate you, you coming out. I hope you found inspiration tonight, and, you know, let's do it together.
Thank you, Joe.